the session. Oh, webinar is not live.
Oh, was I supposed to click that? Sorry.
Oh.
I thought that was just for me to do practice mode. Did I?
Okay, let's stop recording. Yep, stop recording. Or we can, let's pause it.
Welcome to Virtual General Assembly. I'm Dano from GA Seattle campus. Thank you so much for being here this morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the globe. If you have been to GA class before, welcome back. For those of you who don't know us, I'll give you the quick rundown of what GA is about. GA is a tech education company. Our specialty areas include UX design, data, marketing, and software engineering. In addition to the hard skills we offer, we also host free remote events surrounding career development, which can all be found on our GA Seattle event page. Today, I am excited to introduce our panelists who will be leading our session. That being said, enjoy the rest of your time, and I'll turn it over to Havana Nguyen.
Thank you so much, Dano. Hi, I'm Havana Nguyen. I'm a UX designer at Florence Healthcare, and I am also the host or the lead of Ladies That UX Atlanta. We are a meetup of women, femmes, and non-binary UXers, and we get together, we encourage each other, support each other, learn together. It's a great group. Please look us up on meetup.com. I'm going to be your moderator, and we have a rock star team today to answer your questions about the UX career, how to get into it, what's it like versus a boot camp or class. And so you guys are really lucky because you're going to get some top-notch insider knowledge today. I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Kamilah.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. We got like 44 people in this room, and it seems like more and more people are jumping in. My name is Kamilah Benjamin. I'm a creative director and not content creator, but used to be a content creator, creative director and product designer at State Farm here in Atlanta. So super excited to meet everyone. Super excited to jump in here and drop some gems, hopefully to help someone transition into UX. So happy to be here. Thanks, Havana.
Thanks, Kamilah. Keeley, can we have you go next?
Hey guys, my name is Keeley Stitt. I'm a senior product designer at Manhattan Associates. And in my former life, I was a public school art teacher. So reach out to me after the fact if you guys have anything that resonates with you in terms of my story, and I'm happy to help you later on, especially if teaching is a background for you, because I can probably help you kind of make the translation between the two.
Ashoomi?
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Ashoomi Dholakia, and I'm a product designer at Honeywell. It's exciting to be on this panel. Before I started my career in UX, I was a motion graphic designer and a graphic designer. So I have a lot of visual design background, which made it a little easy to get into this field. So excited to speak with all these lovely people over here. Thank you.
Last but not least, Christopher.
Hello, everyone at General Assembly and Ladies That UX. I'm very happy to be here with you. My name is Christopher Harness. I'm one of the product directors at CareerBuilder. And before I was in UX, I was a French major. And my dream was to be a French professor.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that all of you have such different, diverse backgrounds. And just to jump off into it, can you tell me how you got your first UX job? We'll start with Christopher this time.
Okay. Well, I probably have like a really interesting backstory that people would think it sounds like a dream, but it is a true story. I was an intern for a Fortune 500 company, and the first summer that I interned with them, they gave me a copy of Microsoft Front Page and a computer, and they told me companies are coming up with this thing called the internet, and we need like a website. So figure it out. So they gave me a computer and a desk, and they told me to figure out how to make a website. And that was how I got started. It was back in the 90s. And so, then the information age was just burgeoning, it's just coming around. And so I really got a chance to learn and grow up with the internet and with this technology and be one of the people that helps to create this new technology that we're working with.
Love that. Anyone else? Ashoomi?
Sure. So it's interesting, Christopher, that you say that, because I used to work in India where internet came in a little, like we always had it, but then I used to work with a corporate design studio where we used to create like branding for different website, for different brands. And the only concept of website was, why don't you put a website graphic design in the brand manual? That's like, we're not going to really create anything. But then when I actually came for my master's to RIT, I actually got my first internship at Kodak, which actually made me move to UX as a full-time job.
Yeah, so similar to Ashoomi, I have a background in graphic design as well. I actually attended the University of the Arts where I studied graphic design and ended up moving to New York City and starting my career in traditional design, branding, marketing, advertising, things of that nature. And technology began to continue to influence design. And so it was sort of a maturation sort of into UX throughout my career. I had touch UX. We didn't call it UX back in the day, right? We called it web design or digital design or something like that. It was some obscure sort of description of the field and the practice that we know as UX today. And so as technology began to influence the design industry more and more, it was sort of a maturation that led me to UX. So I don't know if I don't remember my first UX job. It was sort of something that just started to fold into the design experience and how we were solving problems as visual designers.
Awesome. So I guess I'll go ahead. Well, I will say that I am definitely the newest to the field on this panel. And in fact, I'm so excited to get to give back to the General Assembly community because I graduated from the GA cohort in Atlanta 2 years ago. And so prior to that, yes, so you can do it. Prior to that, like I said, I was an art teacher. So I do come with a background in, graphic design and just an understanding of color and composition and all that good stuff. And really before I took the course, I was trying to decide, what is this UX thing and do I want to take this leap? I was doing some production design work with the creative group and I decided like, hey, I think UX is more for me. I really like solving complicated problems and trying to really wrap my head around things that are a little bit deeper. And so I left on good standing from my opportunity doing some production design and just stayed in touch with the recruiter and said, hey, I'm going to do this UX course. I don't know if you staff for that at all, but keep me in mind. And I just stayed in touch with her. And then after I finished my course, I actually was placed in my first job within a month. So the takeaway is networking is key, y'all. Be cool. Atlanta and really anywhere is a small town when it comes down to it. And, just make what you're doing right now is great and make relationships with people. And, it's just the beginning of a longer story, just like all of these amazing people just talked about. It's just the first chapter, so it's not just like get the job, but like get the job and then build your whole career, so that would be my kind of biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. Yeah, I got my first job through networking and keeping in touch with my recruiters too, so I can relate. Because you guys come from such like different backgrounds, I'm wondering what skills from your past life do you bring and exercise in your careers in UX today?
I can start. I started off kind of early. So I was 18 when I started. So skills in my past life are probably I think the ambition and open-mindedness, which is hugely important, by the way, for your career. Keep an open mind. But throughout my career, I think the biggest thing that I've learned bringing skills from job to job is that those skills are transferable. So when you go to a company, you learn about that company. I've worked in many different industries. I've been able to take the industry knowledge from one industry to another. I've been able to take the experience from a different job, from a different project to another. So I think those are the things that you'll keep in mind as you continue through your career, is learn those lessons, learn the pitfalls, learn the things that work and don't work, because it is sometimes a trial and error process, because technology changes and innovation changes, and we're always doing things that we've never done before. So that's what you get.
Yeah, I would say for me, after graduating college, I thought I was actually going to get my master's in anthropology, because I was so interested in people, right? And studying people and figuring out how design and anthropology can potentially come together. And so one thing as far as is sort of transferable skills that I feel like is valuable when you become a UX designer is kind of approaching this practice kind of like an anthropologist, right? Being able to immerse yourself in someone else's experience, to be able to empathize and pull the insights out to ultimately create better experience and better products. And so having that mindset where you're able to sort of see something from another person's perspective and pull that insight out and pull that experience and sort of empathize with it, right? Great UXers know how to empathize well, know how to connect to the user, the participant, the customer, the consumer, whatever you want to call it. And so I would say that that's a transferable skill, just my heart for people, right? It's something that I think a lot of people don't really underscore in the practice of UX, but I think you kind of have to like people to do this thing. And, I would say that that anthropologic approach helps you kind of feel comfortable immersing yourself in someone else's experience to really pull out those wants, needs, and desires. And so, yeah, that's what I would say to that.
And I would kind of build off that with a background as a teacher. It's a lot like anthropology. I mean, it's a lot like just caring about people and understanding learning styles and cognitive modes and mental models, and basically like all the different ways you can ask questions. I feel like that's really important. And also, I think one thing that I didn't really realize until I started taking the General Assembly course was how important presentation skills is in terms of presenting your work, articulating why you did what you did, the research that backs it up, and you're UXing everything you're doing. It's not just designing the screen or designing the research study, it's how you share that out to your team and your company. And kind of like Kamilah was saying, it's like, who are you speaking to? Like, who is it? A subject matter expert? Is it, the CEO? You might want to frame your argument or your discussion a little bit differently based on who that person is. So really caring about people and their perspectives, like all across the board, whether you're designing, a screen or you're giving a presentation.
Right. These are great points. I don't think so I have a lot to add, but I'll just say that the skills that I was able to bring before I started UXing was, so I was a graphic designer and motion graphics artist. So when it comes to just viewing things in a different form, is that don't kill yourself trying to learn UX by leaving who you are, because that's what completely makes you so unique. Like UX, like we want to scale, so we create a template out of it, but then don't forget, like if you are a musician, if you're a dancer, artist, sports person, like keep those qualities on, because just that mindset will make you constantly think about how you are so different, and what makes a product or a problem solving different is what you bring to the table. So like, and it's so funny, like I've been in this career for so long, and sometimes like now I have to literally call up my friends and my childhood friends. It's like, tell me more about me. Like, who was I? Like, let me rejuvenate myself. So, like just document your story so that you can be unique.
I love that. Havana, if I may just a little bit, I love what you said there. I think it's at the organization and company's best interest for us to show up the way who we are, right? The reason I say that was when we're building and we're solving problems from a UX perspective, from a digital space, if I always believe diversity is more than just race and gender. Diversity is about diversity and thought as well. And so it's at these companies' best interests for Ashoomi and myself and Keeley and Christopher and Havana to show up as their full selves, so that when we approach crossroads that are a little bit stickier, we can kind of see it from different worldviews. It's going back to that anthropological standpoint, right? I had a friend who's an exec at Verizon right now, and they were trying to solve a payment flow, right? And one of the things, as a person who grew up in a poor neighborhood, he knows that there are people in 2021 who don't necessarily have a bank account. So when you're trying to solve a payment flow, and it's something that should be very easy to understand, but there are people in the society today who don't have bank accounts. And so when we're designing with inclusion in mind, when we're designing with accessibility in mind, it's important for all these diverse thoughts to come into the conversation so that we're addressing as many points and factors in the experience as possible. So it's important for me to show up as Kamilah with an immigrant background who grew up in Florida, but also grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta. My worldview is different from yours, Havana, and that's important when we come together to solve problems.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
I couldn't agree more on that one. It's a perfect point.
Exactly. And so for those of us in the chat here who want to kind of learn a little bit more about the day-to-day, in the UX world, what departments do you all interact with? Like, what's the typical process for a project? And I'll start with Ashoomi for that one.
Yeah, it's so funny. We are actually doing a design sprint this week. And for people who are new to this, what a design sprint is, you basically time box yourself in 1 week where you're trying to solve a problem. So you can meet and reserve times on people's calendar. And that's everyone that you need an approval from and for your portfolio, so for your product, right? So all your stakeholders, so people that we are working with is people who will be creating this product, people who will be using this product, and people who are building this product. So product, development, design, and customers. And so mostly when we work with these people, we kind of get an overview of how we are working, what problems we are trying to solve. So the process or a day in a life of Ashoomi might look like: you start your day with stand-ups, you speak to the people that you are working with, and you're like, okay, tell me if you're working on the same thing, because I don't want you to create and I to create the same thing. Like, communicate, collaborate. Right? And then you are actually working with your product owners to understand the products that they are creating and understand that all of us in this process, and this took me a long time to understand that all of us are equal. Like, even if they own the product, that does not mean that they know more. You know what you know, and they know what they know. So please do not shy away from ever questioning anyone why they want to do what they are doing. So then you work with product owners, you meet with developers to validate some of the ideas that you're creating. So you want to constantly put your tech in place so that you are building a realistic vision and something that you can also deliver. And then definitely validating with customers. And obviously validating customers does not happen every day. That would be a wonderland or a dreamland if I could speak to people I build for every single day. But yeah, that's mostly the process where you work with your important stakeholders. And I'm sure, like, I'm going to stop talking so people can add more to this, but that's been my experience. Thank you.
I'll add to that. So my role is a little bit different in UX than the typical UX role. Now I'm a product director, so at this point I'm not really doing any design work, but my background is about 20 years in design. So not a single day is typical for me. Every single day is different. I work with every department because every department really is built to support the product that we sell. So I'm working with marketing, I'm working with sales, I'm working with UX. I also work with development and our support teams, our success teams, you name it. I'm working with all of them to make sure that everything that we need for our product is available. As far as like some things that Ashoomi said that I really enjoyed, the point that you made was, I guess knowing that you are enough, knowing your value, and being able to speak on the things that you know, because you do know what you know, but also being able to be very candid and direct to no matter what their level is. So even if you're talking to the CEO or if you're talking to, you know, a sales agent, whoever it is, you want to make sure that, you know, everyone is on a level playing field. And believe it or not, no matter how high you go up in a company, or no matter how high the person is in the company that you're talking to, we all want to be spoken to the same way. We all want, you know, genuine truth, you know, and your opinions. We want, you know, an honest opinion. We don't want anyone that's just going to, you know, be a yes man and just tell you what you want to hear. We want to hear exactly what your opinions are. So that's advice for you. That's a typical day in my life.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like I sit between the world of Ashoomi and Christopher, sort of like right in the middle. As a creative director, a large part of my job, I would say in the environment that I'm in, also more specifically, is what is that book that says gain friends and have influence or something like so the majority of okay, so the majority of my role is essentially educating and informing partners, right, and really bringing them on board onto the UX practice. So I work at State Farm, and State Farm is a great company that has been around for over 100 years, and there's a lot of people who've worked at the company for decades, you know? And so a lot of our systems and a lot of things that we do, you can argue are a little bit antiquated, right? And so how do we innovate in a space where it's a business that's doing very well? Quite frankly, you can argue that nothing needs to change at State Farm for us to continue to be a profitable business, but there are still new ways that people are doing business, you know, and how do we sort of bring people along and innovate in a space like that? So a large part of my job, I would say, is educating and informing while trying to simultaneously solve problems. So a large part of what I would recommend to anyone who's wanting to be not just a UX designer, but someone who's leading in this space is to sort of practice a notion of bilingualness, right? Or even trilingual. And what I mean by that is being bilingual to be able to speak the language of business and then also be able to speak the language of creativity and execution and dreaming and things of that nature. The skill sets that we really hone in on and practice as UX designers. But it's super important that we still understand that we have to communicate, and we sort of as UX designers sit in the middle of a lot of worlds, right? And so our job is to sort of synthesize the information and take it all in and do something with it, right? And so in a way, we're interfacing with lots of different groups. And so a part of our job has to be being able to speak that language of that group. And I mentioned trilingual, right? So we're in the digital space. It's important for us to be able to speak the language of technology and being able to partner with developers and engineers and knowing how to pair with them even in some instances, right? While they're sitting there writing code and you're looking at the front end, but also being able to understand the back end and how all these things, these systems connect and APIs that need to talk to each other in order for the innovation actually to come to life. And so it's more than just the pixel pushing. It's more than just the visualization. It's more than just the research aspect of it, all important aspects of the practice of UX. But I always encourage a UX designer to make sure you're looking above, a little bit above of what the work that you're doing. And remember that we have to interface with different groups, and it's important to understand that language. And I always tell people that you don't have to be fully fluent in this language. Just know enough to be dangerous. And that can help you sort of enter conversations intelligently and be able to gain that influence and sort of, you know, continue to innovate.
Awesome. All super amazing points. I love the point you made, especially about learning to speak the language of business. And I will speak for the people who are new to the space. For someone who really had no true business experience because I was an educator, that was something that made me really nervous when I first was moving into the field. So I just will say yes to everything that Kamilah just said, but don't freak out. Like, it'll come as you go, as you learn, you know, so just pay attention and listen and take notes or whatever you do that's, you know, helps you with your personal learning style. But I think the thing that you can do right off the bat is what she was saying about like having that more strategic view, like having that more bird's eye view, which I feel like is so much of what being a good UXer is. It's like zooming into like the super detail and like the pixels, but then also zooming out and seeing how things are connecting. And you'll learn as you go. And I see someone's asking like, how are teams set up and who determines who works on what? It depends. That's like the famous answer. Everywhere is organized differently. In my 2 short years as a UX designer, I've worked at a bunch of different companies and they're all different. It depends. So yeah, just developing a flexible mindset and a beginner's mindset and just trying to kind of be a good listener and take it all on board as you go, and you'll do great.
Can I add on to something that Kamilah was saying? So you have other questions that I'm sure you're going to ask later on, asking us about, advice, hiring advice, et cetera. But Kamilah did make a really huge point that I was also going to make, which is about learning the language. So my background, I told you I was a French major. I went to Emory University. I majored in French. I did not graduate from Emory. After my second year, I left. But I decided, like, further in my career that I would finish my degree. So I went back to school and I went to SCAD and I graduated with a digital media degree. But the entire time that I was working in my career, I was really like self-taught for a lot of that part of a great portion of my career. And being self-taught, you have this feeling of inadequacy. You feel like maybe I don't know enough, so you're learning everything. And I think that really helps me because I didn't know what I didn't know. But when I finally went to finish my degree, I think the most valuable thing that I learned was learning design language, learning how to speak in the creative language. And I would recommend, I actually brought it with me. I love this book. It's called Visual Grammar. If you guys don't have it, please do pick it up. And it has a lot of design language. I would also recommend learning design principles because you want to be able to speak in that language. It's really strong. It makes you really strong and very positioned to command the room when you can speak in the right language. So great advice, Kamilah, and that's a great resource for you.
And I can attest, Christopher used to be my manager. He did have that book on his desk. Oh, these are so great. You guys touched on so many things that I feel like we could talk for hours on. I wanted to kind of ask for the people who are now just learning about UX, if they want to learn about UX, where should they start? I know that's a very big question. I'm curious where they should start.
I can go. So I think so UX has been, like, at least for a couple of years, we've had UX for such a long time. So there are so many articles, blogs, there's so many resources out there. So you just have to look and you will find. General Assembly is also like a very, very good spot because, again, it's like for professionals or people who don't want to go somewhere, like they can actually just go for classes over there. So I did my front end web development from General Assembly. That was because I was not very good at speaking the developer's language. In Kamilah's term, like, you need to understand technology. So when I actually went and just learned the language, it was very important that, like, people start respecting you because now you are not being shy about what you speak and you're being confident and you can do that. So definitely take help of like resources outside, like get to like a school or something. But again, in terms of blogs, books, courses, I do have one more book to recommend, which is a Bible for me, actually, and I'm not very religious, so, but still, About Face by Alan Cooper. This is the best book like anyone can start with if they want to get into UX. It speaks about interaction design through and through, and it's a good start for you to get into the field. Thank you.
How about you, Keeley? Where should they start if they want to learn UX?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could, speak to where I started, and you guys are kind of here. General Assembly and Ladies That UX. And I actually attended a Ladies That UX meetup, in real life before we were all virtual, before I even took my course. And it was such an amazing community and I felt instantly welcomed. So if this is your first time connecting with us, like, please come and join us. And even if you're not based in Atlanta, you can still come to the meetups. I feel like, it's not just about a discipline, it's about relationships and friendships. So of course, General Assembly ladies at UX, I mean, there's a million articles on Medium, you could spend 1,000 years looking at Dribble. But I mean, I think just finding a few people to connect with and book some time on their calendar, like 30-minute coffee chats, and just do your research and look up, a little bit about the person so you have some questions to ask them in advance. Don't just call someone and be like, I don't know anything. Like, have some things that you want to get out of it. And you're going to get some great mentorship. And then, it's like snowball recruiting. Then you say, hey, would you like to recommend someone else that I speak to? And then little by little, find people who resonate with your story and can help you kind of craft your transition between those transferable skills from before into UX. Because that was something for me it was hard at first to figure out, again, that language. Like, what is it that's teaching that's also UX? Well, it's actually a lot of things, but it's not the same words. It's not the same lexicon. So if you can find some people who are willing to spend 30 minutes here and there to help you craft that conversation, it's amazing. And I mean, I got so much out of, there's even people here now who helped me, so pay it forward too. And then when you're in a position to give back, then you do the same.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, and I did not pay her to say that stuff that way.
Well,
I did. Oh, go ahead, Christopher.
Did you want us to finish? I didn't. Do you have another question?
I had a question specifically for you and Kamilah,
Oh,
but if you wanted to add.
No, I was just going to say, just like Keeley was saying, number one, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask, for mentorship or whatever. You'd be surprised at who would help you. But like, people I've heard say, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you don't speak up, you're not going to, no one's going to know. But the other thing that I wanted to add to that was, not only should you not be afraid to reach out to people, but also do something on your own. Like, if there's a project that you want to do, just, reach out and start working on it on your own, because I'm a learn by doing kind of person. And that was, to me, the biggest resource, was just being creative and figuring out like how I could code my own webpage, or like, how do I do my own guerrilla research, And so I learned a lot doing that, and you will too.
I love that. Don't wait for permission. All right, so my question for Kamilah and Christopher is, when you guys are hiring, what do you typically look at when you're looking through resumes and portfolios?
Trying to find the mute button there. That's a really good question. And it's funny because, remember, you guys, I come from a visual design, traditional design background, and when you look at a designer's portfolio, you could tell from the first half a second if that person is a skilled designer or not, right? And a lot of times that's sort of how you're judged. You're judged based off of your visual design skills. But as a UXer, there's a little bit more to the job than just the visual design skills. And so there's a couple things that I look for. One, I look for the breadth of work, right? And the diversity of type of problems you're solving for. I like to see people who can kind of get into different types of muddy situations and find solutions in, and they're not always the same type of solution, right? So you can like solution a website, right? But look at unique ways. I like what Christopher said, find problems in the world and uncover a why, and just seek it to solve it, right? Whether it's building a better, and a lot of people go straight to a digital interface, right? But I'm also looking for people who know how to UX larger than just the digital interface, just the screen, right? Because we think about emerging technologies that are coming out, things in the way that we're going to be interacting. I think a lot of people just go to the mobile screen, go to the desktop screen, but there's other ways of solving problems, and it's not always the screen is not always a solution, right? So I like to see people have a diversity in the brevity in their work. I like to see that how you think in the UX practice is, I think, a large part of if we're going to gel, right? And sometimes one thing that I've learned from a friend recently is that sometimes he'll go when he's hiring someone. I've actually started implementing it, and it's super fun pre-COVID, but post-COVID it's a little bit harder. But we would just invite the person into the office and then just do a whiteboarding session with him or her, right? Just to see how it feels to work with them. Because we spend more time at these offices and these places that we work than at home with our families. And so sometimes you just want to work with someone that you can just get into how they think. And are they going to try to pretend they know all the answers, or are they going to be a humble person that says, I really don't know, let's look into that. And then they're willing to kind of do that grunt work to get into the nitty gritty to solve the problem, and not just try to come across as a know-it-all, right? Because who wants to work with a know-it-all when you don't know? Nobody knows it all. So, and the last thing, a huge, I guess, characteristic that I look for in individual is humility. It's a soft skill that a lot of designers, especially from the visual design background, don't necessarily have. I think a lot of designers are very egotistical, and they can come across that way, right? And I think to be a really good UXer, you have to have an element of humility. And the reason I say that is because the decisions that we make are not based off of our own subjective thoughts and feelings, right? And I have to be humble enough to say, well, the user or the participant actually told us otherwise, therefore we have to pivot, right? And so it's a skill set that's required in the process of solving problems that a lot of people don't underscore, because they may come from an environment where they believe that all the answers they give are the right ones. And we all sometimes don't know. Sometimes we get surprised by our users and they tell us something completely different. And then we sort of have to learn from that and be willing to change and pivot. So I think that requires a level of humility as well. So those are the kind of things that I look for when I look at a candidate.
Great answer. I loved everything that you said as well. When I'm hiring, number one, you need to understand that my job title is not hiring manager. I am a hiring manager, but that's not my job title. So I don't like to hire all the time. But when I'm looking at a portfolio, number one, make sure that your portfolio is a very diverse portfolio, but also consider this piece of advice that I got when I did an interview at WebMD. This is years and years ago, but I was told basically that your portfolio is as good as your worst piece. So always remember that you throw that one thing in there that you're not really liking it, but yeah, you put it in your portfolio anyways. That's the one piece that they're going to look at and say, yeah, I don't really like their designs. Also, I look for open-mindedness, just like Kamilah was saying. I do look for open-mindedness because you want to make sure that the person is moldable, that they are able to learn your company, learn your processes, learn your products, learn the new audience that you have, because every audience is different. And you have to have a level of open-mindedness to be able to accept all those things, because it's never going to be what you think it's going to be. Also, with humility, I think is a really great point to continue on, is you will be surprised at how much the user's opinions differ from your own. It happens much more often than you think. So you need to be able to adjust, to adapt, have some very thick skin, because you're going to design something that people are not going to like. And it may hurt your feelings, but you just need to get over it and move on. The other thing that I think is really important is understanding who I'm hiring, like the role that I'm hiring, because as you're getting into UX, there's many areas that you can go into. You can go into visual design, you can go into UX research, you can go into interaction design, you can be a generalist and kind of do it all. And if I'm hiring for a generalist and I want someone that can do it all, I do look for that. If I'm looking for a visual designer, I want to make sure that you're very strong in that area. If you're a younger designer, then I want to make sure that you at least have the concepts, and I know that you can do the job. Lastly, the last thing I'll say is, usually when I'm hiring, by the time you get to the interview stage, I probably already know that you can do the job. I've seen your portfolio, I've seen your resume, I've seen your experience. If you don't have a lot of experience, I've probably seen something in you that I feel like means that you can do the job. So I'm going to be looking at that point at chemistry. I want to know how we work together. Like, are we gonna have a good rapport? Are we gonna be able to speak candidly with each other? Or am I gonna have to, is it gonna be like pulling teeth to get your opinion or to get you to, to produce things? So I do look at those things, and you can tell personality really quickly. You can tell design skills really quickly just by looking at the portfolio. So hiring, it happens quickly because, everything is pretty much obvious at that point.
Oh my God, those were such good answers. Down. This is great. So I did want to go ahead and open it up for some Q&A. We do have some questions from the audience here, and I'll kind of point out a few. So I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it, but Abhijit says, would you hire someone with great UX skills, but not so much good visual skills? How important is visual design in UX?
Yes, I would. And I've worked with interaction designers who do not have great visual skills. They produce wireframes and we hand it off to a visual designer to make it look pretty. It really depends on the company and how the company is set up. Every company is different. I think, Keeley, you were saying that, but every company truly is different and every company has a different budget. So I may be able to hire a UX team that's 20 people strong. I know companies like Home Depot here in Atlanta, they have a very large UX team, but there's other small businesses that do very well, but they may only have like 1 or 2 people that are doing UX. And so you have to work with what you have. And you're going to be filling a lot of roles if you have a smaller team, as opposed to having a larger team where you can separate those roles.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Does anyone want to add to that? Okay, so, okay. Katie Hamby says, what is your perspective on design challenges as part of the interview? And basically she asks, like, what's the best way to approach a design challenge?
I can go on this since I recently had some design challenges for a role that I was applying. So when you are working on a design challenge that a company gives you, so nowadays there are multiple, so if I get the question correct, like that's what we are asking, right? Like how, when companies give you a design challenge, how would you want to work on it and prepare for that better, right? I hope that's what the question is, and I'm answering to what Katie wants. So what the companies are really looking in the design challenge is the things that Christopher and Kamilah were saying, right? Like, what's your collaboration skills like when you are working? So is this a live design challenge where you are working with one of the designers within the company so that you can think together? And the things that they're trying to measure over there is, again, do you understand the problem? Are you asking the right questions? Nobody is obviously going to figure out that, hey, prepare or come up with the world's best product in that 1 hour or 2 hours that they actually give you. So you want to make sure that you are applying the frameworks that you might have learned. It could be an interaction model or an object model that you might want to do. I know there are a lot of juniors and seniors over here. So these are just some kinds of kind of frameworks that you are applying the job for. So just get your basics a little good so that when you are applying, you kind of know the language and you can, again, speak to the language that you are trying to solve the problem for. One kind of design challenge is that, and the second design challenge might be that, hey, they give you an assignment that they want you to crack. So make sure when you're doing that, you are documenting your process. Nobody's looking for finished visual designs, like, especially unless you're applying for the visual design role, and that's a different thing. But if you're applying for a UX role, they want to look at your thought process. How did you start looking for options? Like, where did you go search for the problems? Who did you speak with? So make sure, like, you are creating a project for yourself where you're taking all these steps to uncover the problem, and that should be good enough. And don't try to like make those presentation skills where you're good at your storytelling. So presentation, storytelling, thought process, and I think you should be really good at that.
I was excellent. And I know someone asked about advice on portfolios for junior level designers. I know, Christopher, you made a really good point about, hey, don't wait for permission. Find a problem out there to solve. But would you, or what else about portfolio would you advise newbies be aware of or implement into their portfolios?
Yeah, Kamilah may have more answers to this, but a couple of things that I want to just highlight. Number one, do not plagiarize on your portfolio. We have at CareerBuilder caught someone plagiarizing on the portfolio in an interview. All those design sites that you go to get inspiration from, we're looking at those sites too, because we're getting inspiration. So we see all the same designs that are out there. So don't plagiarize, that's one thing. But aside from that, make sure that you're picking your strongest pieces and make sure that it's not too long. Make sure that it's diverse. You want to show a range of your capabilities, of your skills. If it's visual design, if it's interaction design, then you want to show examples of the interaction design that you created. Maybe a couple use cases of why you did this and a description of the project is good. It really depends when it comes to portfolios on the role that you're going for. And if you are trying to be, a more general kind of UXer, then you want to make sure that your portfolio represents that as well.
Yeah, I love that, Christopher. I think one thing that I feel like it's really important to display in one's portfolio is the problem that you're solving, and that has to be underscored, right? I think a lot of people again focus so much on that visual design, and going back to even Christopher, they'll pull a design off of Dribble or Behance or somewhere and just like copy that, but it doesn't really solve a problem. And so for me, I think I need to see the cause and effect. I need to see the problem and the solution. I need to see sort of show me the trajectory of your thinking, show me your process, show me how you got from point A to point B, and tell me why you chose that methodology, right? Because not all methodologies are useful to solving a case. I don't necessarily have to make a journey map for every problem, but if I'm using a journey map, I should be able to tell you why using a journey map was important for this particular problem. And then just being able to speak to that, right? And articulate that. So I think one important part of your portfolio that needs to be considered is how you're writing your portfolio and how you're writing about, and that's a skill not everyone has. And if you need to get a writer to come alongside of you to help you sort of articulate what you did in a better way so that it comes across, partner with someone to help you do that. Because if I never meet you, or if I never have an actual conversation with you and I just look at your portfolio, I should be able to get the whole story or the whole process from just looking at it and reading it and understanding sort of how you got from point A to point B. And again, it's not an easy skill to have. I'll tell you, I've struggled with that. Like, how do I talk about this? How do I articulate, if they weren't in the room with us when we had that whiteboard session and we uncovered that particular truth? Like, some of those moments are hard to articulate. So you have to find ways of, using the language to really describe what you did, and also make sure you give credit to your partners, people who were with you in that process. I don't believe anyone is solving these problems by themselves. If you think that you are, I don't believe you, because it's a collaborative process. Like, you had someone else in the room with you most of the time, and so I want to see that. I want to see that, oh yeah, and I worked with a writer, and I worked with a developer, and I worked with a business partner, and we all kind of came together in a workshop, and I facilitated. This is the role that I played. And so, yeah, so that's what I would say to that.
And I guess just to kind of flesh out all great points, you guys. I remember 2 years ago coming out of General Assembly and feeling like all of the different UX deliverables that I learned how to create, I needed to include them all. And somebody that I worked with at an agency that I did an internship with said, Keeley, the UX deliverables are just tools for solving the problem. And so just to kind of reinforce that point, even if you did, create a persona and a user journey and, affinity mapping and all that jazz, like, what was the value add of all those things? Do you really need to show all of them? And one other thing I will suggest is, if you want to share like the whole kitchen sink, you can do deep links within your case studies. So instead of having like the gigantor case study that lasts a million years, you can say, I created a persona and then have a small thumbnail, which the user can click and link into, you know, a PDF or whatever you want it to be. But it doesn't need to be like a giant thing that's taking away the focus from, you know, the point that everyone's making, which is UX is about solving problems. You know, it's not about here's the thing I made, it's about here's the journey that I took. So really thinking about storytelling as much as possible. And again, like just to reinforce, I think Kamilah said it a couple times, but like getting to the why, like that's the key, man. If you can get to the why, whether it's a case study or an interview or a product that you're designing, you nailed it.
Oh man, there's the these are really good insights. I actually have a question. Okay, a lot of people are asking like, how should I interview? How should I do my portfolio? I want to turn that around a little bit. What should a new UXer not do when looking for a UX job?
Don't be shy. The thing is, like when you're in this role with a UX, you're going to interface with a lot of people. You're going to talk to a lot of people and get requirements and be able to even articulate your vision, to be able to articulate your design decisions throughout this process. You're going to have to collaborate with people because it is a collaborative process. So with that said, be a good speaker, be a good writer, but be a good communicator more than anything. This is a visual communication. So that's really important. One thing I also wanted to just a quick point that I wanted to make with everyone is when you think about design, and Kamilah hit on this a little bit, when you think about design, I always tell people that aesthetics is really 20% of this process. The design part of it, the problem solving, is the 80% that you're going to do. And when you talk about aesthetics also, no two people are actually going to ever agree on, you know, what aesthetics is pleasing to them. So don't think so much about making things look pretty as you do think about solving the problem at hand and making sure that you're creating efficiencies within your product, making sure that the user is able to, that it's intuitive enough for the user so that you don't have to have a lot of training and a lot of instruction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can add to that. Those are such great points, Christopher, because I do feel when you talk about UX, like 80% of UX, what you don't want to do in UX is don't create a problem that's just in your head, right? Like create a problem where you are speaking to people and it's a real problem. Like get that data with you. It does not, you don't have to speak to more than 3 people or 5 people. Like, you know, 5 to 10 people. Like if you're creating a fake portfolio, like a fake portfolio product, do that, but don't just make up problems and put that in your portfolio. Don't since Havana posted the question saying that what you don't want to do, I almost want to say what you want to do, but it's like be honest, but say don't lie. You know, like don't lie in your interviews or in your thing, when you're putting this thing together, like be honest to yourself and the people that you are working with, you know, yeah, and I think everybody covered that. Like don't try to be someone who you're not. Like just try and be yourself. Definitely.
I would say don't make assumptions. Every
Exactly.
that you make as a UX designer or UX practitioner is a hypothesis. I always tell people like UX is a practice, like medicine is a practice to a doctor, right? And a doctor can diagnose someone, but ultimately they need to kind of go fact check and they kind of have to test their things. They got to run tests, they got to send it to the lab, bring it back and say, actually, yes, it has found that your cells are malfunctioning or whatever the language of the doctor says. I don't go to a doctor often, so I don't know what they say when things go bad. Okay, so, but ultimately every decision you make is a hypothesis until proven, right? I mean, we are subject matter experts. We have intuition. We know some things, some patterns are just patterns, right? We know that you add a cart and then there's certain things that are just a pattern on the web, right? Or on the digital spaces, but still don't make an assumption. Always come in with a hypothesis or a scientific mind that you're trying to solve the problem and find the right answer. And allow that process to kind of trust that, or I guess trust that process, and go through that process every time you come to a problem or a crossroad. I always, when I talk to my partners and my product owners, I always tell them, this is what we think the users are going to like. This is our hypothesis, but we want to kind of test it. Even if we need to test one segment of the experience just to validate it, just to make sure that we're heading down the right track. I would say just don't make assumptions about anything, because your assumptions are sometimes not right. So.
Okay. Let's see. So another thing, what was surprising about the UX world that you did not expect?
Sorry, Kamilah, were you going to speak? Okay. I was going to say, Keeley is an educator, but I did not expect to be an educator. I think eventually when you end up going in UX, what happens is you are just educating people around you. And like suddenly I've just realized that I have to just go learn how to teach more, because people don't know a lot of this. So again, when you know certain things, the only thing you can scale that in any company that you work or with any team that you work is if you can teach them the same thing that you know and bring them along with you. So teaching is basically in your favor. If you can share what you are trying to do, then you have it with you. So I didn't expect to be an educator, and that's where I am.
I like that point. And I would say, I'm just going to piggyback off of what you're saying. One of the things that you hear this phrase, keep it simple, stupid. One of the things that I tell people a lot is always design for a first-time user every time. I think that when you do that, you're really considering that a person may not know, they may not have ever been to your site or to your app or to whatever product you have. You need to treat every user like it's their first time every single time. That way you make the sites or the apps more intuitive. You don't have to have a lot of instruction. It's easy to guide people through. And I use like the Atlanta airport as a great example of that. They did a lot of work in the Atlanta airport, especially in the international terminal, to guide users, to guide the travelers through the airport without even having to read a sign. If you're coming through international, you don't speak English, you walk through the airport and it just guides you to where you need to be. Just from visual cues in the tiles and in the way that the building is arched, everything moves you through the airport. And it's the same thing with your design. It's gonna be, it needs to be intuitive. And so when you're looking at things that you probably would be surprising is being able to design for the first time user every time. Just be smart about that.
I would say for me, what was the most surprising about UX coming from a background as being a visual designer is that, I was intimidated by UX a little bit because it was like, oh, you got to do this research and this data and da, 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 da. And while I feel like that's always been a part of my design process to a certain extent, I felt like there was this uncharted territory that I was entering in. So I guess I'm speaking to a person who has a graphic design, visual design, maybe came from branding, marketing, advertising, something like that. In a way, I would say you've always been doing UX. It's just more so now putting the practice in place, and UX is more of a process. And so being able to really understand that process and not be intimidated by it, right? Because I think that when we think about the research or the data or the interviewing or the facilitation of conversations and the et cetera, all the things that come into play when we're actually, doing this, it's not that intimidating. It's more so just a level of understanding. And so that was the most surprising to me, that it wasn't that scary, so to speak. It's just more so understanding it more.
Yeah, and I think, this kind of connects with everything that everybody just said, but coming from education, I had this mindset like I have to be a master of something before I can teach it. And then moving into UX, it's the opposite. It's everyone is learning how to master and what the problem is and what the why is and all that stuff all at the same time. And so really it kind of like freed me. And also with the background as an artist, I mean, which is art and design are not that different in that at the end of the day, it's people's opinions. But with UX, you have research. So, you might still have a subject matter expert or somebody higher up that says like, I like purple because I like purple, but you could say 3 out of 5 users don't like purple or whatever, so that's what I loved about it. I love to be able to like bring that beginner's mindset and not have to know it all and just bring that curiosity and be like, hey, let's just ask a bunch of questions and be curious and try to find out. And if my design sucks, like, why does it suck? How can it be better? Let's look at some examples. Let's talk about it. And kind of the point that Kamilah made about minusing the ego, get rid of that. Like, it's not about you. It's about designing the best solution for your user, right? So I think that that's kind of the thing that's like freeing about UX. You don't have to carry the weight of the world. It's not all about you.
I love that so much. And I just see, unfortunately, fortunately, we ended on such a great note. But thank you so much. You guys covered so many different topics. I mean, I hope everyone's been taking notes. Some of the things I captured was, UX works with all departments. You have to educate people. Part of being a UXer is being an educator. Be humble, but be honest, right? Like, speak up. And also, don't wait to get permission to solve a problem. Just go ahead and do that right now. I would also like to add, if you are going through boot camps, one of the best ways to stand out is just go beyond your coursework, right? I think everyone here will probably agree with that. But let's give it up to our panelists one more time. Thank you so much, Kamilah, Christopher, Ashoomi, Keeley. Everyone, please add them on LinkedIn. If you have any other questions for them, I'm sure they would love to hear from you. And please reach out.
Yes, and unless you're in inside sales, I do respond to most LinkedIn messages.
That's a really good caveat, actually.
Oh yeah, but do send a message, you guys, whenever you're connecting with someone. Hot tip. Don't just connect with them, like send them a message.
Oh my God, Keeley, like seriously, I now have it in my about me. Like, please send me the note. I get hundreds of requests.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great.
Thank you all. This has been so fun.
Yes, thank
This
you.
has been fantastic. Thank you all.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. Night.